Okay, so on the top of Laman Aleph, we just said in the Brisa, the Eruvin Ma'arvin, at the very top of the page, Ma'arvin l'koyin Torah b'tshuma Torah b'kever. The Eruvin holds you can even make a Eruv for a Torah kohen in a with Tshuma Torah and put the Eruv in a kever. So we want to get to the logistics. So Heichi Azol, how are you going to get there? B'shida Teva Umigdal. Right, so we said the way you can get there is if you hold that a moving OL is still a valid OL, so he could be taken in a box and taken to the basic forest where he then would be able to eat the truma. Well, the only problem is, given the achsa, it malay. So, but when the truma hits the airspace, it's put into the basic forest. How in the world will that happen? How will the truma remain tahar and therefore be edible? Because if it becomes tameh, it becomes no longer edible for anybody. So what are you gonna do? He says. So we ended with this point of b'shol hochsharu. O shenulisha b'mei peiros. So either we're talking about actual fruits, meaning that you haven't yet made it into food, and obviously then if you bake it or whatever, you cook it and you make bread or whatever you're going to make there. Obviously there it did. But in the case where the fruits themselves were not hoksharu, well, they never had water fall on them, then they're not tameh yet, because there has to come a time first in order for anything to become tameh that's grown from the ground, for water to have, or any liquid, any of the major seven liquids, fallen on them in a way where you're happy. Or, if let's say you're not talking about fruits in its raw state, but rather, let's say already you made the bread. How could bread be still tahar in a basic forest? The answer is yes. Oshnusha b'mei peros. If you needed them with fruits of fruit juice, the way people want to make the mizonos rolls nowadays, so they use apple juice instead of water. So that would also not yet, apple juice is not choshev enough to render it hochshel kabel tumah. So that's where we ended. I don't think we did the Rashi's. Gesundheit. Yeah, so I don't know if we did the top. Let's start from the top of the page. So ma'arvin l'koyin tar b'tshuma tar b'kever. Right, this is Rabbi Yehuda's statement. You can make an eruv for a kohen who's tar with truma tar, and that truma is in a cemetery. V'koshkein b'chulin. And certainly that would be true by chulin dinami mit mechazal, because even if the chulin, if it's not holy in any which way, even if it became tamei, it's still fitting for him. Alafil b'tshuma, but the point is, even shuma dimitamalo lo chazile, where if it becomes contaminated, it becomes tamei, it no longer is fitting. Efshel mevetakanta, there is a way to do it in a positive fashion. Konfarj razal. Like we're about to say, you're able to maintain its tara even for the truma, even in the basic forest, even by a kever. The v'dafkenok haTorah b'tahara, okay, and the words of the Bryce are specific that it's truma tahara with a kohen that's tar, avutmei lo do chazil lo kohen tam lo kohen tar, but not for truma tmeya, which then would be unfitting, not for the for a kohen tamei. A kohen who's tamei also can't eat truma tamei, and certainly not for a kohen who's tar. The kohen tamei b'tar nami lo do chazlei, and also any combination doesn't work, because if you're a kohen who's tamei, you also can't eat truma. And if the truma is tamei, it can't be eaten by any kohen. So it's got to be dafka tara b'tira. So that's the concept. The only question is logistically, how's that going to work? Heichi azul. So how did he get there to be able to access the truma? B'shida tiva migdal, tevo migdal. V'kivan da'achsa mitamale klaimar. Meaning to say, nihidol Rabbi Yehuda fil basic forest ika takantal mezel b'shida teva migdal. Granted, there's a way of getting there. You can get into the basic forest through the box and through the carriage. V'kolshkein kevi yechidi, and certainly if you are not talking about a basic forest, but an individual kever, that's just a burial site by itself, not as part of an overall cemetery, Shochalam etzlo, but certainly there you can stand next to it. And therefore, you can certainly go all the way up to to the actual kever because you're not walking through a cemetery and other places, other Talmudic things. However, Elamia Truma Michiancha, but the trouble is the kohen. I understand you can maneuver the kohen, but the Truma seems to be in a problematic state. Elamia Truma Michiancha Samatame Hilo Shel Kever. But the minute the Truma is placed there, it should become contaminated from the oil of the kever, and therefore, how in the world can you tell me that you can make an Eruv with Truma Tahora in a kever? Or to make a basic forest when it should contaminate the truma? The answer is, well, not necessarily. It can't become contaminated till it's susceptible to contamination. But may perush a machshirin, with fruit juices that are not able, they're not one of the 7 liquids that would render an item able to mekabel tumah. So yes, it's possible that indeed, tumah has not yet hit. It's susceptible. Therefore, the truma would be able to be edible, and you can access it. So you can get there, and the truma is not yet tummy. But we're still not done yet. Okay, back to the Gemara. How are you going to bring the right? The idea is clearly, Rabbi Yehuda holds you have to be able to eat this fruit. So how are you going to eat it? How are you going to bring it to yourself? Because you can't put your hand out, right? If you put your hand out, then you're going to become tummy, and then you're going to mess everything up. So, okay, so the answer is very simply, right? If you use flat wooden keli, that because of its flat, it doesn't have a receptacle, it's not able to mekabel tumah. We learned about this before, that normal kelim have to have a base to receive things in. Pshute klietz, if it's wood and it's smooth, and it doesn't have a receptacle, then that's not fitting for tumah, and l'chorah, that would be a way of drawing the food to get to you, so that you don't become Tameh by exposure to the basic forest. He says the only question is v'kamahel. Okay, but if at the end of the day you stick something out to receive the tumah, to receive the truma, and then it covers the keli covers the kever, the coffin and the grave site, then anything underneath it becomes tamei, and that should be able to transmit tumah to your hand because you're holding onto the other side of the keli. So let's see Rashi. How do you bring it to you to eat it? Rabbi Yehuda roy la'ochla boy, because Rabbi Yehuda clearly requires this component of being able to actually eat the item. Midinakatar b'taira. Since he said specifically about a kohen tahor who is dealing with truma tahora. Okay, v'lo achsher tamei b'tahara. Okay, mishum dechazil achrina. Okay, why wouldn't he just say? It doesn't matter if you're a kohen who's a tamei or tar. Why do you have to be dafka tar? If other kohanim could eat it, if that would be good enough for Yehuda that it's accessible to somebody, well then we wouldn't need him to say dafka a kohen tar. The fact that he says that a kohen whose tar can make an eruv in a basic forest with truma tahira, it must be, the point is that the person making the eruv must be able to eat it. Okay, that's unlike the Chachamim's position, that as long as somebody's able to eat it. That's not Rabbi Yehuda's position. So clearly he has to be able to access it. Okay, V'od, and another way I know that he has to be able to access it, Midatani Masisan, Lochutz V'lechol. Right? Another way is because he says, I can go out there, make a chatzitza and go. If you don't have to be the one to eat it, why do you have to make a chatzitza and go out and eat it? It must be, again, that it's about you being able to figure out a way to get to the food. So the point is, if this guy, the kohen himself, has to be able to eat it, tell me how it's possible that he will be able to eat this food in a tardika fashion, because when he puts his hand out, he's going to become tamei. And the answer is, you use a kli, but pshute kli etzel makabli tumah. Okay, you use a flat piece of wood that somehow, I guess, you'll stick the piece of wood, I guess, underneath the truma or something, and then you'll just take it to you. But if it's not flat, avamidi de makabel tuma low. But if it's something that's makabel tuma, then there's no way you'll be able to use that to bring the food to you. Devle kli tame mace. The kli is tame by coming into contact with a dead person. Shu avatuma. That kli now becomes an av because it's the first thing that connects to the mace. We know that a mace is an aviavos. It's the father of all fathers. It's the highest level of tuma because it's the only thing that even after it touches something, the thing that touches it is an avatuma in its own right, as opposed to everything else, which is an av. A sheretz, for example, would be an av, and anything it touches would be a rishon.
Practically, how's he doing this? He's manipulating with the instruments from in the box.
Correct. Right.
So
you'd have to say something like right.
An egg turner is like a
Spatula.
Like a flat.
I guess something like that.
It can't be wide. What's the dimensions of
It
this?
doesn't matter as long as it doesn't have a receptacle.
So it doesn't matter how wide it is.
Correct. Okay, so let's keep going. And that receptacle, by becoming an av, would then be able to contaminate the person. Torah, and we know that a Talmudic Kohen, okay, if he's a Rishon, he is usher to eat Truma Torah. And that gives you, unfortunately, the death penalty if you're that Talmudic Kohen eating Truma Torah. Yavagav the lespe posech tefach. Even if it's not tefach wide in terms of the ohel, the maislei achudah conforshik hamon. Okay, and even if it's not that wide that you, as we're about to say, that you brought it on its narrow place on the narrow part of the vessel where it's not wide enough to be an OL, because we know that in order to be an OL and to become tummy that way, it needs to be at least a tefach wide, the item. So Rashi is giving us a little bit of a, he's going ahead and says, even if you want to tell me that you brought it on its narrow side, okay, we learned in Gemara Shabbos, Shakol hamatatl mevinas atuma alatzman kshi'ilu alameis b'chol shehin. That all things that move are able to transmit tumah onto itself when it's on the ol hameis. Right? In other words, so he says, even if you're not going to make it into an OL, the direct contact between this item is enough to contaminate the item. Forget about OL. OL means that anything underneath it can join to the tumah. I don't even need that. The very fact, but lamaisa, if this is the pshutei kliyates, and I'm taking the food, I'm still in the box, but I'm accessing the food. Let's say, I don't know, I put it underneath and I slide it underneath to carry it. The item, the vessel, the utensil becomes tameh through direct touch or direct OL. Okay, not that it becomes an OL, but it's in the OL hameis, and now that's an av and I'm a rishon. So you don't need the OL factor to necessarily make me tameh. Okay, and therefore, let's finish the Rashi. And even the smallest amount, the smallest shear, and then he's no longer fit for truma. So I don't really see so far right now how you're doing it. Right, it's a pshutei kli 8. So let's just go back to the Gemara here because Rashi really jumped to the next step. Okay. But isn't it an OL? The Maislo Achudei, okay, then the or Achure, but they learn it Achudei on the narrow part. But there's still an OL. So I guess, in other words, you start off, the Gemara says you use a receptacle that's not Makabel Tumah, but doesn't make it different just because it's not a pshut, that it's doesn't have a receptacle. It's still through the OL fact it could become Tameh. Okay, the Maisa and the Gemara answer the Maisa Chudei. So let's see Rashi. We still have two more Rashis here. V'kamayel kasakedaitach. So the Gemara at this point is of the opinion sheish b'kli poseach tefach. Okay, that there is in the kli an opening of a tefach, o bekefa tefach, or in its circumference it's a tefach. But gozol ha'adam hanoso bove hamerdei b'tzias haShabbos. Okay, and there is a gzeira. So granted, in other words, midiraisa it might not be able to transmit tumah, but rabbinically, anybody who holds on to this. Anybody, an adam who carries it, but over hamardeya, b'tzias haShabbos, some kind of thickness of a mardeya, that's a shear. But bottom line is that even rabbinically, it will make you tameh. As Rashi said in the earlier Rashi, it's not going to spare you from becoming tameh from the fact that it is over, that it is in ohel, and it transmits it to you. And the Gemara says, well, the ma'isle achudei. The next Rashi, the kli she'ein b'chudei tefach lav oelhu. Okay, so at this point we're still dealing with the keli being in ohel and being in ohel over the thing, and as it's going to be in ohel, it will transmit to your hand, which is also underneath the kli. So Rashi took us the next step. So it's a little bit. One second, because the Rashi before says Yavagav the last the might say is a tuma alatzmung shilu ala meis b'chol shein v'sulu chazil b'truma. So okay, it seems okay. I'm not sure. I'm confused because in the early Rashi says even if you want to carry it on its narrow part, it's still not going to make a difference because you're holding on to the kli. The kli is in direct connection to the mace. It's going to render you tamei regardless. And now it seems the Gemara is answering. But if you carry it on its narrow part where it doesn't have, it's not a tefach thick. That seems like, I don't know, it seems like it would spare you. So I'm not sure what Rashi was saying in that earlier Rashi, because at this point it does seem that it would spare you. To the what?
I'm sorry, Rashi starts with Avol B'midit and Mekabel Tumah. Isn't this whole like most of this Rashi as something that would be Mekabel Tumah?
Lo Mekabel Tumah lo. Okay. Okay, one second. The kli tami meishu ava tumah tami also b'tshuma. V'yafagav the less. I mean, if that item. Okay, so in other words, okay, you're saying that if so if something is mekabel tumah, okay, fine. In other words, so Rashi is saying that if it would have been mekabel tumah, even if it wouldn't be an OL because you would be carrying it on its narrow part. Come on, okay, fine, thank you. Yes, so Rashi is referring to only items that, in its direct contact, are able to mekabel tumah. But the ohel, right? So the Gemara's whole question was on the pshutei kliyates, that granted it itself can't become tameh because it's pshutei kliyates, but it can serve as an ohel. The Gemara then says, because it's not right. That Rashi, as Ephraim just said, that Rashi is referring to only items that can. We're in the world of pshutei kliyates, which cannot. So the Gemara said, okay, you're right. Pshutei kliyates, flat piece of wood, can't themselves receive tumah, but they can serve as an ohel, which would put anything underneath it as a receptacle for tumah as well. So your hand being underneath that flat piece of wood would still be able to become tummy through the ohel factor. To which Gemara responds, no, it can't, not in this case, because you carried it on its narrow side, so it didn't have the thickness of a tefach. It wasn't a tefach wide to transmit. Okay, so we're good. Shkoyach. So
I'm confused. You guys are.
Oh, really? So
yeah. Okay, so let's suppose you have this wooden narrow thing.
Yes.
It can't mekabel tumah, the wooden narrow thing.
Right.
Okay, so you said that you're bringing the food is
right, but right here. But let's say this is the flat thing. Yeah. Okay, so if I'm holding it because I have it in my hand.
Don't you have a handle? Why not have a handle?
Well,
so it doesn't. You're not even.
It doesn't matter. But this item, it's one item, right? So anything that's underneath it that is in the same airspace.
But you could have a handle on the end, so I guess I'm missing the point.
Once there's an ohel over it, then it's going to anything underneath it is going to become tameh, even if this part is not over the actual corpse.
Where's the food? On top of it, isn't it?
It doesn't matter. But the point is, no. But I'm going to become tameh if my fingers are underneath the flat piece of wood, and the flat piece of wood is an ohel, is a tent over the mace, so anything under that OL becomes
I understand.
contaminated.
But suppose your fingers.
We're not focused on the food right now. The food, you're right. The food we spared because the food is not hochshul kabel tumah.
But I'm saying you don't have to have your fingers on it. Put a handle on the end, so it's you're manipulating it. So okay, so let's say the wood thing is ohel, but your handle.
So I never got my hand underneath.
Yeah, that's
well,
what I'm asking. Isn't that possible?
But the handle would become well again. The minute
They say that the piece of wood was narrow. So
for the one is once it has a handle that already changes it. Pshute kliates means it's a flat piece of wood. That's what it is.
So in other
right?
words,
Handles don't work.
I'm changing the facts.
Right, exactly.
Oh, okay.
You're changing the nature of that particular kli.
Don't you have a piece of wood that's less than a tefach, so that it's not an ohel? I mean, isn't that sort of the point here?
So you turn it.
Right. So he said, well, that's Moore's answer. That's Moore's answer. That you put it on its narrow, part that it does not become oil.
I can't get past that you're still doing all this from within the box.
Yeah, correct.
I mean, how you're worried about your fingers under it, and
Yeah, right. Okay, but
Here and,
but it does seem now, after all the manipulations here, that it's possible to access this truma to get it to you in the box without becoming tummy. It's in the basic forest, and you somehow using a pshute kliates that even if it is a tefach wide, if you put on your narrow side, it will not become an oil. That protects you. It protects the food is not yet hochshel kabel tumah, so the food is tar, and we're all good, right? So the Gemara says, if we're all good, yachimai tam rabbanan.
they don't have pictures of this.
Come on, look at this.
Yeah. Okay. This would need a video. This would not. Okay, it's a little complicated. Okay, so you've manipulated this whole situation so it's not to render you or the food tameh. That's great. Then why the Rabbanan say that it's not good? Okay, and the answer is kasavri asa liknos ba b'surei ano. You can't acquire a space for a eruv that's asa b'hana. Okay, let's look at Rashi. Right. So, right. Just Michael. Your point is that really Gemara could have answered that it wasn't the tefach wide instead of having to say, okay, but Enachami probably could. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's not that practical. I'm not sure. But why couldn't you just have answered that it's just not a tefach wide to become an oil? Okay, but either way, it's the same type result. Bottom line is. On the narrow part of the item, it's not a tefach thick to become an oil. So next Rashi, Yachimai tam Rabbanan. If that's the case, then Rabbanan, what's their beef with this whole thing? Bekevi yechidi. What's the Rabbanan? Why would Rabbanan argue in an individual kever? In basic forest. Granted, they argue on the basic forest concept because you can't get into the cemetery in the first place because they held that a moving oil is not an ohel. The chatzitza is not a val chatzitza, so you're literally moving in a cemetery. But there are two scenarios: either the cemetery scenario or the individual burial plot scenario. Can we mention two scenarios? In that individual, you can walk right up to it and maneuver this narrow kind of flat piece of wood situation to get the thing to you, and then you can eat your challah roll, your truma dika challah roll in purity, and everything is good. So why would the Rabbanan say that you can't access this eruv, that you can't make such an eruv? Okay. One more time. Yachimaitam Rabbanan bekevi yechidi in an individual kever. Nihid iflagu masis meisek faras lo sfirlu hu devi chatzitza bayel zroi. Granted, they hold it's not an interposition or whatever the word is. It's not a chatzitza when it's a moving oil. But here you can stand at the edge of the grave and just bring it to you, and everything is good. You don't have to deal with contamination, and it should be okay. The answer is no, it's not okay. Why? Because we have a rule. You cannot acquire a house to make your abode for an eruv with things which are prohibited. Bekever, okay, v'anohi, okay, you're not, which is, and what's asur b'hano? A kever. You can, right? Can you derive benefit from a burial site? No, anything to do with a mace is asur b'hano. Right? When people die, then anything that serves them, anything that relates to facilitating the corpse is asur b'hano. and therefore you cannot derive benefit from this place, from this kever. From this burial spot. He says, "Avanohi and you are deriving benefit because with this burial spot, you're not going to be able to travel 2,000 amas beyond. So you're putting this granted non-tameh piece of truma bread in on the thing on the not the corpse, but it's on the kever. So how in the world can you do that since you with this spot, you want to be able to walk 2,000 amas in a further direction to be able to extend your place and your ability to travel. We learned down in Sanhedrin that all things that service a dead person are usher for any benefit. Miriam. Okay, the word sham was used next to Miriam when the pasuk says Miriam died there. We learn that we have Xer Shava sham from Egla Rufa. Vafil b'Yisrael nami asher bonan. Okay, and even a regular Jew, forget about a kain. Even a regular Jew is asher. The Rabbanan asher to have benefit. And the chiddush here is just the reason why we picked a kain is to tell me the power of Rabbi Yehuda. The Rabbanan would argue even by Yisrael can't derive any benefit from this burial site. But the chiddush is in Rabbi Yehuda that he holds even a kohen who has all these complications. It's still possible for him to use this as a burial, as a place to acquire an eruv, even though it is asabana. So the question is, how do the Rabbanan say it's not okay? The answer is not okay because you were using a burial site to access 2,000 amas, which is called benefit, and that benefit is unacceptable.
Rabbi, what's the definition of hana from a burial site? What is? If I visit a burial site and I admire the gravestone, and I read the caption on,
I don't think.
Wow, that's a historical thing. What does it mean? What's hana mean?
Well, hana generally means things that are worth something. If I now would be able, and I can carry 2,000, it's a practical kind of benefit. I can now walk 2,000 amas more than I could have walked, before Shabbos hit.
I get that makes sense to me.
Yes, that's.
But what about hana and other?
No, so we say smell is not really hana. You can walk by a chametz stick of bakery on Pesach and take a sniff, and smell the danishes of that non kosher bakery. So like things that are not really tangible and but when you can walk, that's called real hana. So seeing a beautiful carvings and admiring that's no, I don't know.
Okay.
So the beautiful wording, that's not called hana. So generally it's marketable, and that's generally what something that's worth something. That's tangible and that's marketable. So anyway, so the point is, so now you've explained Rabbanan. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? So one more time, back to the Gemara. You cannot acquire an abode for your further being able to walk with something which is prohibited in pleasure. Michlal, from what? From there I can deduce to Rabbi Yehuda Sava Mutter. Does Rabbi Yehuda then hold its mutter? That doesn't seem to be plausible. Everybody seems to accept this notion that you cannot, this Gzera Shava is universally accepted concept, that you cannot derive benefit from things which are prohibited in pleasure. So what's the Rabbi Yehuda's position here? The answer is, Kasava mitzvah slav v'honesnit. No. Well, your ability to walk 2,000 amas is only relevant when it's a mitzvah to walk those 2,000 amas. You want to see a rebbe, you want to go to a shir, you want to do something positive, you want to visit your parents to do kibbut avim. Your walking needs to be something connected to a mitzvah. We've already said that the general rule is mitzvah slav v'hodas. Being able to do a mitzvah is not called pleasure. You might be willing to pay for it, but it's not called a pleasure in the spiritual sense, in the halachic sense. It's not viewed as a pleasure. It's an obligation. You got to do a mitzvah. So that's not called hana. Okay, so wait a minute. So you tell me, it sounds like what you're saying is that the machlokus between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakh and the Chachamim is whether or not mitzvahs lav lahanisnit or not. That according to the Rabbanon, they will say you're deriving a benefit from the mitzvah and it's usur, and the Rabbi Yehuda holds really that it's not called hana because it's a mitzvah. When Rav said his seemingly universal statement that mitzvahs are not meant for pleasure, it's not viewed as that you are deriving anything of any real substance there. Are we going to say that his opinion was really a machlokas tanoim, that it wasn't a universal opinion, that now we find out that it's actually a machlokas tanoim? Is that something that Rav is going to buy into? So Rav says, of course not. He's not going to accept the notion that to be pigeonholed into Rabbi Yehuda's opinion only. That's not going to work for him. Okay, if you had held that the only way to make an Erev Tchumen is for the sake of a mitzvah, then you'd be 100% right. The Kul Yama mitzvah lav v'harasiddu. Everyone would have admitted that you could make your Erev because it's for a Dvar mitzvah. Mitzvah is not called a Hana, and you go ahead. And you're not deriving benefit from a burial site because you're doing all these maneuverings like we learned about with the Pshutei Kliyates. You got that covered. You got the the basic forest covered because you're not in the basic forest. You're just on an individual burial site, and the Rabbanon would have agreed. Okay, but the machlokas here is going to be Masava ein ma'arvin el dvar mitzvah, Masava ma'arvin afilu dvar rishus. Well, Rabbi Yehuda says the only time you can make an Eruvin Techumin is for a Dvar Mitzvah. Since it's a Dvar Mitzvah, Mitzvah's lav l'hadasit, everything is good. The Rabban, on the other hand, say no, they can make it even for a Dvar Rishus. So that's the machlokas. Well, okay, that's nice. So in other words, there's a fundamental issue between these two Tanoim. Are you limited to make Eruvin Techumin only by a mitzvah, or you can even do it if you just want to go there because there's a nice concert out there in the middle of nowhere. You want to listen to the music, and it's not a Dvar Mitzvah because it's not Shweki or something. So, can you make an Erev for that? And the Rabbanan say you can. Since you can, it's not a mitzvah. Since it's not a mitzvah, you're deriving benefit. It's us to do. Well, that's all fine and dandy. Elohadam Rav Yosef. But wait a minute. What about that which Rav Yosef says, who says Eimar Avin El Dvar Mitzvah? Right, Rav Yosef went on record to say, seemingly universally, that you cannot make an Eruvin Techumen but for a mitzvah. So are we now going to say that Rav Yosef is pigeonholed into a particular Tana? Are we going to say that his statement was made only according to one Tana, but it's actually Machlokas Hanam, which is what Rava just said? So is Rav Yosef going to buy into that? So technically, the Gemara could have, and sometimes the Gemara does flip-flop it and says, Rav Yosef will say, Rava's halach is machlokas tanam. Don't pigeonhole me, pigeonhole Rava. But here, we don't go that way. Rav Yosef will tell you, no. These are universal concepts. Everyone holds you can only make an Erev Tchumen for the purpose of a mitzvah. And everyone agrees with Rava's halacha that mitzvahs are not called hana. When you put on tefillin in the morning, it's not called benefit. And if you answered the benefit of tefillin, it would not be answering you to do the mitzvah of tefillin. That's not called the benefit. And all mitzvahs are not called the benefit. So what's the machlokas tanom? And the machlokas is like this. Masav akivin the kana le erev lo nichle the mintera. Okay, one will say once you already acquired a spot for the erev, you don't care about the bread anymore, the food that you put there. So you don't need that to protect your food. Okay, okay, I want it to be protected. The itzrich ochla because I need the food. I'm going to eat it. So since there is a secondary benefit going on here about the food that's being protected by where it is. So do you want that to happen? Do you care or do you not care? So if you hold you're caring, then you're getting benefit from a place that's holding your food and protecting it for you. And if you hold that you don't care, well then that's not called a benefit, and that would be your Yehuda's position, and therefore it's not a problem. Okay, and that would be the basis of the Rabbanan arguing with Rabbi Yehuda. So let's see here. We have a few Rashis. Mitzvahs lav v'hanas nitno. The ein ma'arvin el dvar mitzvah. Right? And since the only way you can make an erev is for dvar mitzvah, lechas a beis ovel, you want to be menachem ovel somebody, or a beis hamishtel, come on, or you want to go to some kind of a mitzvah, sudas mitzvah, a wedding, and you want to be samech chas v'kalo, some other nice simchadik event, which would very often be a mitzvah. Okay, so what about Hadarava Besukkos Rosh Hashanah? Take a b'shayfer shel ola, right? Rava says you're allowed to blow the shofar of an ola. A carbon is also bahana. So how do you blow a shofar from a ram? That's a carbon. The answer is because you're not deriving benefit from the carbon because you're using it to blow the shofar, and that's not called a benefit. So is this Rava now going to be a controversial point? No, it's not. Everyone holds like Rava. Rabbanan Savri Ma'avin Afilu Dvar Rishus. Okay, so he will say that the Rabbanan hold that you can even make a Eruvin Tchumen not for a Dvar Mitzvah, if you're just using it for some personal benefit. Vilka Chanoihi. Once it's not a mitzvah, it's now viewed as a real benefit, and now becomes prohibited because of the fact that it's a basic forest. So Rava will learn the machlokas that way. But that's all fine for Rava, but now when you get to Rav Yosef, Rav Yosef B'Keitzad Mishtatfin, who says that you only can do it for Dvar Rishus, so what's going on? How you don't want to make him into a machlokas hanoim, to which Rav Yosef says no. Everyone will say it needs to be a mitzvah, and everyone's going to say mitzvahs lav v'hanasitnu. So what's the machlokas? So the machlokas is kivin the konolei erev ben hashmashos. Once you have acquired your erev, when dusk hits, when that twilight time hits, and you have now acquired your erev, sula yichbat le ben etrusa. I don't care about whether my mizonos roll gets protected or not. That knias erev. Kivin the konolei erev ben hashmashos sula yichbat le ben etrusa. The ad knias erev. Okay, v'ad k'nes erev inami nichalei. Okay, and even though he did care until the acquisition of the erev, lav hanohu the mishamitzvi, because that's not called right. He only cared till the erev took effect, and that caring wasn't really hanoh because you only cared about the mitzvah factor. What about the food there? That you don't care about. Once you get what you want to get out of it, then everything is good to go. The other mandiyam will say no. I do care about even the mundane aspect of it, and therefore the food that's in there I do care about. That is deemed as a benefit, and therefore it will not be acceptable, and that's machlokes. So it's a really very side point that they're arguing about. It does have bearing here as far as the basic faros, but it does not impact any of these fundamental principles of mitzvahs lav v'hadasitnu, or the fact that you only can make a erev for dvar mitzvah. Okay, so that takes care of that issue, and now we're ready to do the next mishnah. Ma'arvin b'dmai u'ma'aser rishon shatla chamaso. You are allowed to make an erev with demai, which is the grain of a amorit, which has to be doubled over and retaken, because the Rabbanan said even though the majority of amoratzim do take truma meiser from their grain, there's a significant minority that don't, and in order to protect yourself from that possibility, we ask you to do it again. So you can't eat it. You can't eat it without taking it again. It might not be good, but yet the halach is here in the Mishnah. You could make an erev with demai with meiser rishon shont l'chumaso. You also can make an erev with meiser rishon whose truma was taken, which sounds obvious. I mean, when you give meiser, the Levi needs to take 1/10 of what you just he got a 10th from you, and you got to give the 10th a 10th of what you just received to the Kohen. It's called Trumas Meiser. So if the Meiser Rishon Shenot L'Truma, so if you have Meiser Rishon that you took off from that Meiser Truma for the Kohen, then everything is good. Okay, Meiser Sheni Vegdish Shiftu, or if you have Meiser Sheni or Hegdish that has been redeemed, which is now L'Chara able to be eaten because you redeemed it already, V'Kohanim B'Chala, okay, ubechuma, and a Kohen can make an erev with challah which he can eat, or chuma which he can eat. Avo b'tevel, but you cannot make an erev with tevel, which is untithed grain. Lo ma'aser rishon shol truma, so or ma'aser rishon where the Levi did not take his additional 10th yet, and now it's for him. That is usher because he didn't yet take the his tithe. the Levi has to take a tithe as well. Nor can you make an Eruv with Ma'aser Sheni or Hegdish, which has not been redeemed, which right now is in a prohibited state, and we shall pick this up tomorrow. Shkoyach.